Hi, Mucay. It's a pleasure to see you again. And after the call, I've been thinking a lot about, the situation worldwide. But, you've said a couple of things about Africa and Kenya specifically that really kind of caught my attention. Now, what's going on there? And where it's the close-up increasing, the lockdown increasing. What's going on?
Yeah, so across Africa, it's different. But if I give you the Kenyan situation specifically, we've been going, like I said, gradual lockdowns. We've changed different things. Schools closed, bars have closed, and now we have a curfew. So since Friday from 7 p.m., no movement of vehicles or any people. There is a limit for essential services. So, the telephone company, food supplies, they're supposed to be allowed to move during that few time, but that's how it's observed is a bit different. And a lot of businesses are down actually, closed, or there's just slow traffic moving around. Uganda yesterday made a big surprise because at 9 p.m. or something, the president went on TV and said, okay, from today, 10 o'clock, no movement.
Wow.
Like immediate. It was just like,
wow.
So still waiting to hear from friends there going, but the military was out and so on. So you could walk out, and I think it's one of the key challenges for us in Africa that if you do a lockdown, how do you manage food? Because we just have very different food supply systems than anywhere else in the world. Yeah.
Now, are people abiding by the curfew? I mean, is it a problem to keep people in a lockdown?
Yes. Okay. So that's a bit of a challenge, and I think it goes two ways. One, a government and a police force that is not very used to subtle methods or subtle means of encouraging people. So the first day of the lockdown, social media was just full of government police type beating people up and making them lie down on the ground next to each other, which everybody was like, social distancing, what's the point? So it was pretty violent the first day. In some areas there were, of course it's fair to say there were also some other videos of soft-hearted policemen talking to people, helping people with mothers with kids carry their. It was mixed, but it was, government is not, and our police force is not used to subtle methods. So that's a challenge. In some townships, it's become a problem, because the curfew is 7 p.m. to 5 a.m. And the 7 p.m. especially is quite a challenge for a lot of working people because they have to get to home, and public transport isn't necessarily great. So I think the government will have a challenge achieving 90%, 80% fulfillment because the country is big. We don't have enough police force to implement it everywhere. But in the towns, in the urban areas, main urban areas, I think they're working hard on keeping.
Wow. And what about the hospitals? I mean, do you know of any stress in the hospital? I mean, are people going to the hospital? Because I've seen few dead people, but there's the number is increasing by the day. So I was wondering if the health system there, is holding up or not. So far.
So far, yes. In Kenya, we have 45 cases. I think we had 41 cases as of yesterday, confirmed cases. So far, and at 41, we can hold up. I think I was talking to an infectious disease, a public health guy who was telling me probably 4,000 number at which we can't hold up anymore. But still, most of them, I think, are not showing severe symptoms. So that's good. We are waiting to see. I don't know if you saw it, there's some paper around going about vaccination for, there's a vaccine called BCG. It's not verified. I think it's just a study somebody's proposing that there's a vaccine, which is very common in Africa because of tuberculosis.
Right.
That's been used consistently. And so they think maybe it will be less severe on the people who get it here. We don't know. So far, not too bad. The health system, there is not much. So basically, in the Germany, I think they had 29,000 respirators. I don't know, Italy had 8,000 or something like that. We have like a few hundred.
Wow.
Maybe respirators is like 200 or so, maybe 400 ICU beds. So the aim of government, and I think what everybody is saying, is we do not want to have a large number of people because we have nowhere to take them. Literally, there's nothing to take them. So if it goes that pandemic and people need ICU, we are in a real fun. Yeah.
Now, I know you're an entrepreneur. You have a company, and you work with the government, for the manufacturer system. Now, are you putting in place some help for the business, or is there any consideration on that level at this point in time?
Yeah, so let's start with the government side. So the government has been trying to put in some measures to help businesses. We've had a relief. Starting tomorrow, VAT has dropped by 2% from 16% to 14%. They've proposed some measures on the taxes. So like personal taxes for especially the low income earners. They've raised the barrier so that a lot of the low income earners who are at about, that will be $240 and below will pay no tax. There are some tax breaks for companies as well.
Okay.
That could be useful. But largely, I think two sides. We are in this is when you realize we are in the third world. So our businesses do not have, or rather our governments do not have that much fiscal space, or they don't have a deep pocket where they can get some money out of. We are still resource poor. So the ability to give out is not that much more, it's not that huge. But we've been doing for the last 5 years or so, some cash handouts to the very, very poor at the bottom. And so they are thinking about how can we expand that? But the source of the money for that is not really there. Yesterday, the government also formed a board. It's a board, or we are creating a fund so private sector can put money into it and then help donate and create a fund that would help the government respond if people want to donate to that. Otherwise, a lot of companies, of course, they are involved in their normal CSR activities, which here has been largely focused about washing hands. So, people are told to wash hands and use disinfectant, but, we don't have a lot of water necessarily. Running water is not an assumption that everybody has running water. So there's been a lot of effort by companies to provide water at key points within like the informal settlements and so on, so people have water they can actually wash their hands with and sanitize. The government came together with the private sector to very interesting, actually, some signs of innovation. So there's a lot of bootleg alcohol, illegal alcohol. People make illegal alcohol to sell to people, which the government has been, when they find it, they seize it. So they use all that alcohol to make hand sanitizer.
Right.
Okay, so they sent it to one of the big oil companies, and they've made hand sanitizer, which they're giving free in the low income areas, so people get sanitizer.
Wow.
Because basically it's alcohol with a bit of glycerin or some other. That's what you need to kill the virus on your hands.
So instead of drinking,
so there is some innovation.
They should wash their hands instead of drinking.
You wash your hands. Yes.
Right. That's creative.
One joke I had is that the first time my hand is. Our hands are getting more alcohol than our mouths. Yes.
Now, in Italy now we are at above 10,000 people dead. But if the situation escalates there, that might be quite dangerous, because the thing can be out of control very fast.
Yeah.
So is there a concern of that?
Yeah. And that. Absolutely. That's what's driving the whole issue of even getting more lockdowns. And government is very, and I think also, let's say, private sector, a lot of people in leadership and business are worried about what happens when the body count starts rising. So far, we have one death in Kenya, or let's say one recorded death. The other challenge we have, of course, is because again, our health system is not very solid. We don't know what's happening. You know, there is a section of the society which isn't as well recorded, so you don't really know what's happening up there. But nothing massive is happening. You wouldn't say that there's a huge amount of deaths going on. So I think, yeah, the worry is that, and then the worry is also, if we get that number of deaths, that size of deaths, then you start getting secondary effects, because we don't, if we touch wood, we don't get there. If we got 10,000 deaths, where do we have the morgues to where are we going to put all the body? Do we have the capacity to arrange the funerals, and how are we going to deal with that? It creates second order effects that need to be addressed, which would become very difficult. So I would say in Kenya it's difficult. In other countries, I guess they've done them before, so they've had, but I don't think anywhere we've had that scale of deaths in a short time for a long time. I think obviously we had the Rwandan genocide. They're coming up to their memorial next month, actually next, so that's in April. But that was also a big mess. And so in Congo, they had, you know, during their wars also in the 90s, early 2000s, but I don't think they happened that concentrated.
Right.
So that would be the challenge, the concentration of it. Yeah.
Right.
But yeah, we touch would hope the BCG vaccine works. So yeah.
Right. Now that's interesting, because I've heard about that, and I've heard about you know, these tuberculosis vaccination. Are there any studies behind, or is just something that it's a rumor, or is there a study behind it?
So what I heard is it's actually there's a study proposal, because what's happened is that with COVID, it's such a massive event. Everybody, all the academics and everybody is just like, we need to study this thing. Let's see what is happening. And I think on the internet, if you do the number of scientific studies coming out of COVID now, it's like way up. And I guess a lot of us are even the academics are at home. They have to find something to do. So they're doing some sort of studies.
Right.
So what I understood when I first saw it is it's an abstract that has been created. Somebody wrote an abstract and said what they could observe just from top line when they look at countries like Italy and so on. So apparently in Italy, you do not vaccinate for BCG.
No, it's more than 20 years.
But Germany...
Yeah, Germany does it. Huh?
Yeah, exactly. But Germany apparently still does it. So this was somebody trying to explain, theorizing why maybe it is not as severe in Germany, but more so in Italy. So what I saw, it's a proposal to do a study. There is some indicative basic information. And in fact, I think it's gone on because some countries are thinking about vaccinating the health workers as well with it, so that to reduce the and I don't know, it's related to that. So I'd say it's a theory at the moment, so it's not proven, but so we're going to wait to see.
Yeah, no, another thing in Italy, the problem is that we have over 60 doctors that died of COVID-19. So, you know, there's a lot of people that are, you know, in the health system that are getting infected because of the lack of masks or gloves or lack of medical equipment, you know. So that's another thing that we are going through. So, you know, my interest here is that it's just beginning. Yeah, go ahead.
Yes. No, I'm just going to say about that medical thing, because that's the next issue we have is our doctors. Again, they are not very well protected because, again, low resource environment. And we don't have many doctors. We can't, if we lose 60 doctors, that's a huge impact on our overall thing, because we, you know, our per capita doctors we can't really afford to lose any doctor, so to speak. So one of the big challenges, and in the Association of Manufacturers, we're trying to work out what kind of rudimentary basic protections we can provide for them. Some homegrown things, because of course, we've seen the space suits like they were wearing in Korea and China and all those things, but you can't get them now. It's too late, because you have to deal with what you have. So we're trying to think of how can we make some local kit, some local equipment that may not be as foolproof, but protects more a little bit than sending them out there just kind of unprotected fully. Yeah.
No, my interest
that was the point.
Since it's just beginning out there, there's just one person died. I really would like to follow what's going on, and if you don't mind, even in a week from now, I'd like to have another call to see how it evolves, because now you're beginning something that is kind of
Yeah.
spread out, and it's difficult to control, because there's no, not everybody is known as to be either or not
Exactly. Yeah.
infected. So it's
Exactly.
a very interesting condition that you guys are in, and seems like Africa. I just read that a lot of nations in Africa just started to do something about it, because it just came out. So it's the beginning now, and we were at the beginning at the end of February. So it seems like you guys are a month behind what happened in Italy a month ago. Hopefully it's not going to go that far. If hopefully the vaccination would work, and hopefully it's going to be all under control. But I really am interested to hear what's going on and your point of it, and what happens over there. And first-hand informations are very important, because there's a lot of things that people say that we don't really understand if they're true or not.
Yes. Yeah. It's a lot subjective. Yeah. And how is it going now in Italy? What's I'm told you're off the peak now. It seems to be going down. That's somewhere else I saw it's going south now. So
that's what they say. The south seems to still have an increase, of infections, but the lockdown, they say, is working out in some ways, because the number is not increasing at the same speed that it was increasing. But yes, we have more than than 1,000 a day, and it's really kind of impressive to see what's going on. But the point here is that most of the people now are understanding that our part is very important, to stay at home and to slow down the infection. Because the point here is not to overload the health system. And that has been said, because once you overload the health system, the side effect of that is that people are not going to die only of COVID-19. It's going to be a mess across the board. And that's what we're trying to avoid, which is already a big mess in some areas. But it seems like the curve should be going down. This week, we're looking at the possibility of the curve going down. Yet, nothing really secure, nothing really clear yet. What we know is that they postponed, we had the lockdown up until the 3rd of April. Now they postponed it for after Easter. So we have another 15 days, but, people are thinking we're going to go ahead until May, so that's difficult, because people, bear it, but it's not, businesses are suffering like crazy. So even the aftermath will be very difficult to understand, because beside the pandemic right now, we need to look at business. How will we recover from what is happening right now? And we will see that after, but Italy is on their knees, and they're trying to give money to people. They issued like a 600 euro per person for the low income people, but that also, if they have to pay rent and they have to pay grocery, there's not really much that remains for them. So
it's a problem.
We'll see. It's a real problem, and we're kind of hoping that we pass through the peak, but so far, we're just staying home and looking at news. And the funny thing is that the media is kind of saying many things and nothing very clear. But and one of the other things is that politicians are kind of taking advantage of the condition, opposing the government. So it seems like there's no real oneness. People are not coming together to fight this thing, but as usual, they start to blame one another. They start to pick up the opportunity to gather some vote, and and it's really sad to see, because on one side, a lot of people are helping. There's a lot of doctors, volunteers, and a lot of people that want to help and get on the hospital. On the other side, you see these politicians that are kind of barking at each other, and there's not really sense out of that, at least for me, but probably somebody, will make sense out of it. But right now, they're trying to just blame somebody. That's what they're looking for, somebody to blame, which at this point in time is not really what serves our nation. And on the other side, it really confirms what people say outside of Italy, that we are kind of politically a mess, in some ways, and that is affecting a lot of the public opinion, because on the social media, on everything, there's a lot of blame shift. Plus, we have a lot of people from the outside,
Yes.
like Germany, all other European countries that are not really cooperative with Italy. While in the meantime, we have like people from Cuba, people from Russia, people from China, kind of a
Yes.
new type of help. We're not used to that type of help.
Yes.
We thought we would expect to be helped by European nations, but as a matter of fact, they're not really helping. But some of the people are helping.
Yes.
You know, we accept the support, because that's in this moment you would accept support for anybody. You know, but
Support from anybody. Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah. But it's kind of funny, you know, how who you would expect to be part of, you know, a support system, they're not, and who you wouldn't expect to be part of a support system, they're coming and helping. Albania just sent doctors, you know, to us, and that's a very
Wow.
interesting thing, because Albania is a poor nation, but you know, and the president even said, you know, we don't forget that, you know, Italy has been good to us, and so we want to help, you know, and that's a very interesting thing.
Okay.
That Germany is kind of keeping a day, and Albania is jumping on board, and it's redesigning, you know, somewhat the alliances here.
Yes. But I thought I saw a big plane from Germany. There was a photo going around. The big took 300 people or something to some of the ICUs.
Yeah, there is something
So,
coming. You know, there is something coming now, because you know they understood that it's not just, you know, at the beginning it was more like, oh, these Italians, you know, they just want to relax. That's why they have the COVID, you know.
yeah.
But now that they're starting to
Yes.
see in their own nation something different, now they are more aware of the reality of it, and they're waking up.
Okay. Yeah.
The funny thing though is that everybody woke up a little late, you know, even though the information
Yes.
was there. You know, people are starting to wake up now to a problem that, you know, we could have taken care of a long time before. But at this point in time, we can't really look at the past. We need to look at now, and what do we do now?
And now and see what's happening. I think you know what you're saying is good, because I think that what I've been telling people, even here in Kenya, that the COVID is and this kind of crisis, like any other crisis, is a great revealer of who we are. And you know, if you're going through a crisis, you know, it's the same thing. You know who your friends are in times of trouble. That's when you know who your real friends are. But I think also the interesting thing is about understanding the nature of people. So talking to a colleague of mine or a friend of mine in the medical space, and they were just talking about their doctors. So they have some of their doctors who are very, you know, usually outgoing in your face and so on. And they're freaked out totally, because they're like, whoa, this thing is gonna kill us. So it kind of reveals character, but also at a national level, so that you know what you were saying. I was going to ask you that, but you did say it. You know, so you know, Italy is a bit laissez-faire. You know, it's a bit relaxed, right, compared to say the Germans, right? And it's hard to change now. If you take the Chinese government, what they could show is their strength, and their strength is that capability. They've got centralized government. I think the army was very significant in this. They could build a hospital in 7 days. Okay, I mean, we couldn't get a hospital designed in 7 days, right? And they could literally build it and finish it ready in 7 days. You take the Koreans, Singaporeans, they are very highly technocratic, professional, scientific approach. And you know, that's what they've done. They've just kind of unleashed this, let's call it, it's almost higher level thinking, and solve the problems for themselves. You know, they have, because they were prepared. They've been doing it all their lives. That's what they're doing. And the Germans, of course, like you said, now people discover Germany has 29,000 ICU beds, and everybody's like, why? But they have them because they're always prepared. They have.
No, and if you think about, you know, it's 10 years that in Italy they were cutting down on the health system. Basically, they're cutting down, you know, the finance for it, you know, and they've been cutting down to the point that now we needed what we let go, and now we don't have it. And I think that's something, as you say, you know, it's really a reflection of you know, of the way Italians have been dealing. I mean, I would say government and politicians, you know, they've been dealing with things, trying to do what was evident to people that they were doing. They didn't really take care of what was important. They only took care
Yep.
on the short term on what they could brag about, such that they can get the votes. And that's really, you know, a misery right now, because we are not prepared for something serious, because nobody thought about getting ready for something serious, you know. And so that's a very interesting way of looking at things.
And now take us in Africa. So us in Kenya, we have, as somebody noted, it was in The Economist actually. The Economist noted Uganda has more ministers there than ICU beds. Okay, there are more ministers than ICU beds. All right. Wow. Kenya, we have more members of parliament than ICU beds. Okay, wow. Wow. And we've got so now we're like, we haven't been investing in our health system. And one of the reasons has been, I think, well, we don't know, but for the rich, the elite, the leaders and so on, you get sick, you fly to India, you fly to the UK, you fly to South Africa, and you get treatment, and so on. And then suddenly there's this shock that now you can't go anywhere. So if you get sick, you are gonna go to the local hospital, right? Which you don't even know where it is. You've never really considered what it's been like. So it kind of reveals that's what your society was like. Yeah? So it's you haven't been very efficient and effective. So one of the issues we are also having is like government at the top, very clear and understanding of what the situation is, what the risks are, and what we need to do. But somebody wrote an article actually this weekend, and they said our governments tend to be like steering wheels, which are not connected to the wheels of the car. Okay, so they're up there, you know, like the way kids play in the playground. I'm driving this car, but down there something different is happening, and their ability to control things at the lower level is just minimal. So that's one of our problems also with the lockdown and the curfews and so on. Because like actually on the day of the lockdown, I was in talking with some government guys on what's going to be allowed to move on and so on. And they were saying, no, we've told the police, be gentle. We're not trying to fight with anybody and so on. Literally 1 hour later, you could see the videos of them fighting with people. But that's at the top. So at the top, that's their thinking and they're clear. But what they've told their guys down there, that's what the guys know what to do. So it's very hard. And although I think this crisis will change our cultures and who we are and the way we see the world significantly, there are some things that you are what you are. How do you see this changing the world, or Italy, say, even where you are and around you? How is this going to change our world?
Now, the question is very interesting, and the answer, it could be just a guess so far, because I think the economy is gone so far down, and we don't know yet how down it went. We will see, you know, where we are when the lockdown is going to be over. As soon as the lockdown is going to be over, we will see what's going to happen. And the point, everybody's looking at how long this lockdown is going to be, because the longer the lockdown, the more difficult to recover from it will be, you know. And definitely we're going to have to change our habits. We're going to have to change a lot of things. I'm thinking about flying, you know, I'm thinking how that's going to change. I remember, you know, the 9/11, you know, when that happened, all the flying changed, you know, all the rules to fly changed. And probably rules of flying will change this time also, you know. And we have, for instance, we have a lot of drones going around now that before we didn't, you know, and I believe that's going to remain, you know. So there's going to be a lot more control over the situation, which on one end might be good, on the other end probably not. But we'll see how the companies will, you know, the resilience will show up right after the lockdown, and we'll see some of us will be resilient and regenerate themselves, and some of us will have to close and do something different. So I don't know what the scenery is going to be, you know, but I think there's going to be a lot to notice and a lot to pay attention to. But the things, I don't think things will go back to normal as we know it. It will be a normal, but it will be a new kind of normal, you know, so we would be aware of our fragility. We will be aware, you know, that anything can happen, and we are all have to deal with it, you know. And that's what's happening in the world, worldwide, you know. This happened, and we all, no matter why it happened, but we all have to do something to deal with it. And I believe after the lockdown, this is going to be a very interesting phase in which, you know, some people will be able to take advantage of it because they will be fast in moving, flexible, agile, and some other people, you know, will just let their company die. And that's going to be very interesting to look at. And I'm obviously, you know, supporting some of my clients that are going through this, you know, and a lot of them, you know, send their workers back home, and they're thinking, you know, some of them are thinking about selling the company or just liquidating the company. You know, it really depends how long it's going to go, because they're losing money every day, and the orders are not going in. And so how long can you go like that? You know, how long can you stand still? You know, and so this is a question that a lot of people is trying to answer, but to me, any answer would be a guess, you know, but hopefully we're going to see it soon. That means that the lockdown is over and that we can go back to business. A lot of people is going on the internet. A lot of people are moving on the internet, a lot of stuff. And so that also is expanding. Even doctors in Italy now, they don't visit people as much. They send a code, and you go with the code to the pharmacy and you get the medicines. I mean, this was available 3-4 years ago, but nobody used it.
Nobody used it.
So now it's time for people to use a lot of digital interaction and a lot of digital solutions. You know, even Zoom and other things like that. You know, I did a workshop, and we had a breakup sections, and we had a lot of things that we could do together. You know, very interesting. You know, because now everybody's getting organized, and it seems like the digital world was ready for something like this. We were not ready to use it, but the instruments are there. So probably we're going to be educated to use the instruments that we have available
a little bit better.
But other than that, I don't want to enter into too much of a precise guess, because I could be proved wrong very easy.
It could be all over the place. Okay.
So we'll see. So thank you, Mucay, and we'll talk in a week, and we'll look
in a week and see what happens.
All right.
And I'll be looking out for the other videos as well, for the other conversations. That was very interesting.
Perfect.
All right, cheers.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, Davide.
Thank you.